So welcome everybody to Bottom Line with Roni and Byron. Our special segment, our special interview is with none other than local historian and author Dale Cox. Welcome, Mr. Cox.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
I enjoy the program. Watch it quite often.
Hey, I appreciate it, and it's crazy that we've got a little back history there. I think I did an interview over in Washington County, and a gentleman, because I'm a big history nut, he asked me, said, "Do you know Dale Cox?" And I was like, "No, but I'll definitely get up with him," and we crossed paths, and we've been, spot on ever since. So every time I open up a segment, I always say my good friend. So people say, "Oh, you know everybody." Sometimes that's just how things fall, you know what I'm saying? But hey, so I wanna open up and talk about your blog, because you're a big proponent of Two Egg. That's my hometown, my home neighborhood and community, and so we've got that shared kinship of being and growing up in Two Egg. So you've got a blog, Two Egg blog, blogspot.com, and you open up about a story recently in the county about the property where the county courthouse actually sits, and there's no deed, or there's no actual information that's showing that the county actually owns the property in which the county sits on, the courthouse sits on. So but please give us the story and the backstory, the back history to how it got to be to the point where it is now.
Well, that's true. When the city of Marianna was established, in order to become the county seat, they offered to, at that time, it was the Legislative Council, because Florida was still a territory, not a state yet. They offered to them that they would give a square or space to build a courthouse on, and a courthouse that sat on it. And so the legislature said, yeah, that's a great idea. And so everyone said, great. And so the legislature at that time voted to make Marianna the county seat. But before they could get that done, Webbville, which was then the county seat, which was over just north of Cottondale, appealed to the U.S. Congress. And U.S. Congress said, you don't have a right to overrule the U.S. Congress, because Florida being a territory, the federal government has control over who makes those decisions. Mm-hmm. And so they overruled the legislature and ruled that Webbville was the county seat. Mm-hmm. And so Marianna never actually conveyed a deed to the county, giving them rights to the courthouse square. And as far as I can tell, to this day, never has done so. The original owners conveyed it to the corporation of the city of Marianna, which is today's city council, mm-hmm. or city commission. And as best I can find in the records, and I had someone at one of the title companies do research on this, and they couldn't find a record of it either. And we can't find a record in the state archives of where the title of Courthouse Square was ever transferred from the city to the county. So by actually building and occupying the courthouse itself, the county, I would think, owns the land immediately under the courthouse. Mm-hmm. I think everyone, maybe other than the county commission, would agree that the land of Courthouse Square itself, where the grass is and the trees and everything like that around the courthouse, mm-hmm. actually probably belongs to the city of Marianna. Mm-hmm. As proof of that, I would say, look at who maintains like Madison and Jackson streets, which are built over part of the original Courthouse Square. Mm-hmm. And those were built, expanded, and maintained by the city of Marianna, and they cover part of the original Courthouse Square. And it's not the county maintaining those, it's the city of Marianna.
That's right. That's right. That's quite the pickle to be in. You think of all these years that would have been caught. So what brought about the I guess you could say the not an investigation, but the curiosity about ownership of the property? They had a meeting and this came up, or what was the?
Well, it came up because actually this was prior to Hurricane Michael. The county wanted to cut down or had sought proposals to cut down all of the trees around the square. Mm-hmm. And this was not over the specific tree where the Claude Neal lynching was involved in. And I know everyone has different opinions about that specific tree, and I have opinions about that specific tree, and I tend to view my opinion is what the NAACP's executive board came out with, and I tend to go with what they think is best. But the other trees there were planted after the end of the Civil War by Asa Bellamy, who was the first African American businessman in Jackson County to ever receive a contract from the government of Jackson County. And most people don't know this. He was a man who was born into slavery. After the emancipation, he became a businessman and went into the landscaping business. And he was contracted by the county commission and received the contract to plant all of those trees that you see around the courthouse. And I thought it just a terrible shame that they would go and cut down the trees that were planted by Jackson County's first African American businessman. I think they're a memorial to the first person of any race who ever, to my knowledge, who ever received a contract from government to do any kind of landscaping in Jackson County. And I think we should have a historical marker to Mr. Bellamy there and preserve those trees. And so I started saying, well, I wonder if they really have a right to cut down the trees. And I kind of reached the conclusion that maybe they don't, that maybe that should be something for the city of Marianna to decide. And so I kind of threw this out into the middle of things, and maybe it threw enough of a wrench in there that it stopped it at that time. And of course, their argument was those trees could fall at any time and harm someone. And then lo and behold, after Hurricane Michael, which trees were still standing? It was Mr. Bellamy's trees still standing, not all of the rest of the trees in Jackson County. So.
So, and it's crazy that you bring the history of Aesop Bellamy into play, because a lot of people, especially our young folks, and even people my age, and even those Generation X and the millennials, they don't know this history. And I was a part of that circle that gave my opinion, in regards to the removal of the Claude Neal tree. Now, I'll say that I was in disagreement with you, because for me, it represented an act of terror. But at the same time, I feel like, because I'm a 20-year veteran, almost, come August, God be willing, I'm a man of structure. I believe in, we'll go with what the majority wants, and then we can adjust fire that way. So in kind of looking, when I saw your blog and I saw the comments on Facebook, and I went down, I said, well, you know what? Looks like majority of the people, they're kind of in the middle, and it would make sense to put a monument of some sort at the specific tree, and with just basic information about what happened to Claude Neal, the situation, and be a place where people can come and read and get that history, and it still preserves the work and the tribute that Aesop Bellamy did as well. So I know a good friend of mine, Miss Curly Spies Potter, she had been working very hard to have a Black soldiers monument there, and been a lot of back and forth with the county. So this also could open up a new door to revisit. So hopefully this is open up some eyes, and maybe kudos and thank you for the hard work that you've done, because this would have gone unnoticed, and ain't no telling how much longer. It's been quite a while. And the history of Florida, people don't know, immediate, it wasn't that long after the Seminole War, boom, the Civil War popped off, but in between that time, Florida had to become U.S. territory, had to become a state. So it's a lot of stuff that happened in that condensed, like 20, 30 years. And when we look at modern day times, when we look at spans from Vietnam to, the war in Iraq, it's like, it seems like forever. But during that time, it was so much going on in Florida. And I'll talk forever about that, because like you say, we love history. But
so I agree with you in terms of that specific tree, where the Claude Neal situation happened. Um, I could go either way on it. I
Yeah.
think that I understand the people who want to keep it. I understand the people who want to bring it down.
Hmm.
And my view is if it would bring healing to the community,
Exactly.
bring it down.
Exactly.
The tree where he was actually lynched at was actually out in the woods near Paramore Landing.
Hmm.
That tree was destroyed by Hurricane Michael, so I think God ruled on that tree.
There you go.
And I'm fine, and I think there needs to be a marker or monument out there,
Hmm.
at Paramore Landing as well, telling
Hmm.
what happened there.
Hmm.
And I felt like things have been hidden
Hmm.
long enough either way.
Hmm.
And it's time for that story to be publicly acknowledged and
Hmm.
told.
Hmm.
Either way,
Hmm.
I felt like that the impacted community needed to have a chance to speak.
Hmm. It's
And I wanted to see the rest of the trees, whatever happened with that tree. I
hmm.
wanted to see the rest of the trees saved.
Hmm.
And I think there needs to be acknowledgement and a monument or a
Hmm.
marker,
Hmm.
interpretive panels for that story. And I think there needs to be acknowledgement of what Aesop Bellamy did too.
Hmm.
And I think there's, just as we're talking here, there's a way for every viewpoint to be, not there shouldn't be two viewpoints on what happened with Claude Neal, but
Hmm.
uh, there should be a way for the trees in front of the courthouse to be preserved. There should be a way to acknowledge the Claude Neal story, and there should be a way to acknowledge the Aesop Bellamy story or Aesop Bellamy story. And I think all of that can be done.
And yes, it can. It can be done, and that's the what we're trying to get to is a point
Mhm.
that I'm contrary to popular belief or what negative may get put out about me. I'm a unified.
Right,
I believe in bringing people together.
right,
And you can't heal and you can't move forward if you don't get to the root of the problem and address it.
exactly.
And that don't matter if it's whether it's in your own family, whether it's between you and a friend or a spouse. If you don't get to the root of that problem, you can't heal and you can't move forward. And no
It
matter what,
remains, it's a festering wound if you don't.
it festers. And no matter what, as long as we even in, I hate to go into that realm, but even in politics, if you're
Yes.
pulling left and I'm pulling right, hey, we're still making a step forward. We
Mhm.
don't go backwards, and that's the whole point. So once again, thank you for the work on that. But when we talked about, we got into the Seminole War, we got into talking about the history of Florida. So that gives me a great segue to talk about a festival, a big festival that you have planned and is coming up in April, I believe, and it's the
Yes.
Pirate and Heritage Festival. Tell us about this festival, because you got me psyched up. So I'm wanting to, dress up in some. Either I'm gonna be Juan Caballo or John Horse or somebody. I want to be a Seminole or something. And I know it might not match with pirates, but hey, I want to get off into it. So tell us about the festival that you got coming up.
Well, and it does match with Pirates, and that's what's neat about this.
Mm.
Is this event is going to be April 1st and 2nd
Mm.
at Three River State Park in Sneads, and it is the Pirate and Heritage Festival. And we are commemorating the life and times of William Augustus Bowles.
Mm.
And he was a pirate and adventurer who lived actually here in Jackson County for a time.
Mm.
Lived, we call it in the suburbs of Two Egg. And he lived over on what is now Lake Seminole, but over on the big river, the Chattahoochee River.
Mm-hmm.
And he married the daughter of a Creek Indian chief there, Seminole chief, named Thomas Perryman.
Mm.
And what was really unique about Bowles is that his crews were made up of Black Seminoles, of Lower Creek Indians, of Seminole Indians, and of some white adventurers from the Bahamas, and even a few Spanish refugees who had deserted from the Spanish garrisons at St. Mark's and Pensacola. So he pretty much had the great melting pot going on in his pirate cruise.
Mm.
And he sent ships out onto the Gulf of Mexico, and they attacked the ships of Spain. he had a real gripe against Spain, so he would go out and attack Spanish merchant ships and even battled, the warships of Spain.
Mm.
And so his lifetime was really a time of great adventure. It went on from in this area from the 1770s up to about 1804, 1805. And so we're going to recreate that time period. And we've got an original vessel of that time period coming in. We're inviting reenactors to come, including you're going to take part in that. And we're going to arm you with a musket of that time period. And we're going to have some fun. And we've got Seminole Indians and Creek Indians, and we've got Black Seminoles and Spanish soldiers and boat crews, and cannon firing is going to take place, and musket firing. And it's going to be a wild time. And we invite people to come and learn about what life was like during that time period. We're going to teach about what the Black Seminoles, what their lives were like. And these were great individuals who, when people look back on history, a lot of times they think, well, I don't want to look back because that was all about slavery and all of that. But these were great people. These were people who Bowles would send the Seminole and the Creek Raiders up into Georgia, and they would help people who were living enslaved on the plantations escape and come down to Florida where they could live free. And they would join his crew and take up arms and then fight for freedom.
I'm glad
why they were joining his crews. And so this was the first real fight for freedom in our part of Florida.
There you go.
And some people might have heard of Fort Mose over outside of St. Augustine, where people were doing the same over there. Well, they were doing it over here.
Yep.
As part of Bowles's cruise.
Yep.
And so we're going to have all that. We're going to have, live music with some great band out of Chattahoochee. Some of them I've heard them play at some of the events at the farms at Two Egg there. And Isaac and his guys are going to come and perform. And he's a descendant of some of these Maroons or Black Seminoles. And we're going to have food. We got anything you'd want at a festival, including a boat parade or regatta right up the lake. But it's going to be a great time, April 1st and 2nd. And I think everyone's going to enjoy it.
Cool. And it'll be a $3 entrance fee per vehicle, everybody. So, and Mr. Cox, we got to bring you back later on, the closer we get to the festival, so we can let people know. Just a tidbit, it is Black History Month. So, I gotta throw it at everybody. If you paid attention to what Mr. Cox just said, the Underground Railroad, I know with movies and with, everything that goes on, everybody, the concept of everybody escaping and going up to the north. But a lot of people, instead of going to where it was cold, they went to where it was warm, and they came down to Florida because it was a free territory. I believe around that time, correct me if I'm wrong, Alabama and Georgia weren't made states at that time. So a lot of Black people here, you may have a history of Seminoles and not even know it. You may have been here before slavery even came, and you may not have a descendancy of slaves, and you may do or don't, right or wrong. It doesn't make it good or bad. I'm just saying that digging into your history and like you said before, thinking that everything in the past was just all about slavery, it's not something to shy away from, because your ancestors, whether they were slaves or not, they didn't suffer, they fought through it. So I'm telling you, it's a lot of rich history when it comes to Florida in this area. And the first bloodiest battle was right on Chattahoochee River. So, and it's kind of sad that history in a whole has gotten thrown under the bus in our school systems because of the standardized testing. Reading, writing, arithmetic has been at the focal point, and to all of this land here, was Seminole, So, and our kids have no clue of that. That was probably one of the biggest, some will argue, the largest slave rebellion of American history. So that's just something to throw out to everybody. If you can find some readings, get you a book on the Seminole War, or you can get you a book by Dale Cox. He's got many. How many books do you have? But I want to speak about the first one, The Fort at Prospect Bluff. I got my own copy. So make sure you get that copy of the book. And I'm pretty sure I'm trying to get on his level. How many other books do you have out there, Mr. Cox?
I have 19.
Wow.
Yeah, the latest one is The Fort at Prospect Bluff.
Mm.
And this is, speaking of Black History Month, this is a book that I really consider, of all my books, if I could recommend one book for folks to read, it would be The Fort at Prospect Bluff, because this is a book about, my ancestors were Creek or Yuchi Indians.
Mm.
And it's a book about the Creek Indians and about African Americans who stood up and fought for their right to exist at a place called Prospect Bluff down on the Big River.
Mm-hmm.
And some people know it as the Negro Fort.
Mm-hmm.
And when the United States came down and tried to destroy the Indians and tried to capture the African Americans and take them away into slavery, instead of submitting, they stood and fought.
Mm-hmm.
And it resulted in a 7-day long battle at this fort that ended with the deadliest cannon shot in North American history. And 270 men, women, and children died there. It's a remarkable story of how people stood and fought rather than submit. And we're talking about 40 years before the Civil War, and people know about, the USCT, the U.S. Colored Troops. They know about the Buffalo Soldiers, but they don't know about Garcon and the men and the women who stood to the guns at Prospect Bluff, which is right here near us. And it's an incredible story. And it's a story where our ancestors, some of whom were dragged away in chains, but before they were dragged away in chains, they stood and they fought for freedom. And because they did, it inspired way up in New England the abolitionists to begin their movement. It inspired Frederick Douglass. It inspired Abraham Lincoln knew this story.
Yeah.
It
John
inspired
Brown.
Harriet Tubman. It inspired people like that who began the fight that eventually did lead to freedom for everyone. And it's a story that if you live in this area and you don't know this story, you will want to know this story, and you will be shocked when you find out, what happened there. And it will change your view of when you go back in time and you wonder why they didn't stand up, you'll find out that they did. And you'll be proud of them for what they did. And they might have lost the battle, but they won the war. And that's what counts in the long run.
Hey, we could go on for ages and talk about this rich history, but one thing that I want everybody to know, and I tell my soldiers this all the time: don't believe a word I say. Look it up.
Right.
We're not just making this, not hearsay. We're not making this up. This is real, actual, factual history. And you need to know, because once you know, it opens your eyes to something bigger. And it gives you a sense of pride of that history, of where you come from. And hence, we don't want our young folks to leave and go do great things and don't come back home. They can do those same great things right here. So it starts with a step. Those that did it in the past inspire others, and we want to inspire our youth and inspire the next generation for this area. So thank you again, Mr. Cox. And like I said, we got to bring you back. The closer we get to the festival, to let people know that it's coming, and to come and enjoy themselves and soak up some rich history, because it's all one big circle. I'm big on Emancipation Day, the festival and the history behind it, because once again, it brings us back to that rich Florida history, that rich local history. And it's just, trying to get history back into the focal point, because knowledge of self and knowledge of one's background and one's upbringing, it has a very gravitational effect to the psyche, to how you walk and how you talk. Real quick, I've been across this planet twice, and I've met someone from Sneeze and someone from Malone. And you would think I'm in Africa, I'm in Kuwait, and in a line, somebody that I'm training, somebody that I'm training from. Yeah, So it's a small world, and you never know who you may meet. So hey, take that, and everybody list, get that book, The Fort at Prospect Bluff. Also, make sure you go check out Dale Cox's his blog. That's 2eggblogspot.com. Three Rivers Pirate and Heritage Festival will be April 1st and 2nd. And I have the information it'll be on the screen. So make sure you enjoy that and partake in it. So thank you again, Mr. Cox, for coming on the show, and we'll have you
Had a
back.
great time.
All
Had
right.
a great time.
All right.